This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is the show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love. Well, I am so excited. I can't believe it, but this is my 100th episode of Dream Power Radio. I have been so honored to have been doing this show for the past 2 years, and I thank each and every one of you who have discovered the show along the way. We've talked a lot about nighttime dreams with so many wonderful dream experts, and through them, you've learned everything from the basics on how to remember your dreams to the many, many ways you can understand them and work with them. We've talked about using dreams to heal us, how to work with those scary dreams we call nightmares, the benefits of drawing out our dreams, understanding lucid dreaming, and even dreaming for other people. And we haven't forgotten those daytime dreams either. I've been fortunate to talk to a number of amazing, empowering experts who help give us the tools to navigate through our lives and release our self-limiting beliefs so we can all live our dream lives. I'm especially grateful to all the wonderful people I've interviewed who've given us practical and useful advice on how to thrive during this pandemic. We've also spoken to experts on diet, nutrition, exercise, and how to improve our inner and outer beauty. We've even taken a dive into the paranormal and discussed past lives and how to communicate with our departed loved ones. And if you've missed any of those shows, don't worry. You can access all of them in the archive. I hope the next 100 shows will be equally fascinating, and I invite you to join me on the ride. As for today's show, I can't think of anyone I'd rather celebrate this special event with than my guest, Kelly Sullivan Walden. That's because if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be speaking to you at all today. Kelly is the one who introduced me to dream work. It was my first teacher and mentor, and I'm proud to call her my friend. And you should know this, but if you don't, Kelly's been helping people awaken to the power of dreams for over 2 decades and has written so many books on dreams I've lost count, including the bestsellers I Had the Strangest Dream and It's All in Your Dreams. And she's come out with several dream oracle card decks, including the Carter-winning Hero's Journey Dream Oracle. Welcome to Dream Power Radio, Kelly.
Debbie, I feel like I'm exploding with joy. I feel like I don't want to die anytime soon, but if I did, I would die with such a smile on my face because I got to contribute to you and you're contributing to so many people. I'm so happy and congratulations. I'm toasting you for your 100th show on Dream Power. I'm so proud of you. This is so exciting, and I feel I couldn't be more honored to be with you today.
Well, like I said, if I was going to do a 100th show with anybody, it had to be you.
I just wish it was in person. This is the next best thing.
It is. Well, I wanted to bring you on today because recently you took part in a very unusual dream group experiment. So can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it was very unusual, and I learned a lot from it. Still processing it, I believe. So I was invited to be a dream expert. They called me the dream doctor. not Dr. Dream like I normally go by. It was for the Twitch network. So the Twitch network has a premiere network. So it's Twitch Presents, and they cultivate and they curate and they create some content for their users. Most of the users are gamers, but it's now open to all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. Really, it doesn't exclude anyone, but primarily it's gamers. But the powers that be behind the scenes of Twitch, they all come from the gaming world. And they started noticing that some of their gamers were videotaping themselves all day and all night. And they noticed that there was a spike in views while people were sleeping, playing their games. And they noticed, wow, people are interested in seeing what happens when people sleep. And it would seem like what a boring thing to do, but they were noticing a trend and so people that were wanting to get more views were keeping their camera on while they slept. And so that was kind of the beginning of the idea. And this all started in the midst of the pandemic, when there started to be an uptick in people posting in social media how they were remembering dreams and how dreams were becoming more and more vivid. It was seemingly more vivid. So they put together what they wanted to do, a show that actually was deliberately focused on watching people sleep. And while watching people sleep, let's also find out what they're dreaming about. And while we're doing that, let's put them in an experimental space where we can actually control the environment. And then, so it became this really big thing, this sleep and dream experiment that took place physically in England, in London, so that the people here, because we have opposite sleep schedules, people here in the US could be watching people sleep over there while they're awake.
So they were doing the experiment. So what was your part in it?
So my part was to be the dream doctor that was a part of the experiment and observing the experiment, interacting with the dreamers. And there was a bit of theatrics involved. Like they deliberately didn't want me to be exactly myself, because I would have been a lot more like, oh my God, what? This is so cool. They wanted me to be much more subdued and be a little bit more sci-fi, a little bit more James Bond, like, hello, subject 003. I am the dream doctor. Now tell me what you were dreaming about. And on the inside, I'm like, oh my God, tell me. So it was a little bit of a role that I had to play, but so what we did was, during the day, to engage people, to get them ready for what we did by night, I would do a Q&A dream conversation with the Twitch audience for a couple hours in the day, and then plug what we were doing at night. And then at night, during the night for the dreamers and sleepers in England, I would watch intermittently. Most of the time I was watching, but I wasn't watching 100% of the time, but most of the time, and watching their reaction as they're sleeping to the very, very bizarre things that were happening to them. Did you get to watch any of this, Debbie?
I did not.
Oh, you didn't? Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay, I've got to send you some of this. So literally picture a white room with a bed and a person sleeping. And every once in a while, they would start to experiment with sight, sound, with smells. So they would pump in the scent of strawberries, and they would notice the time, and they would see if the dreamer was reacting. And we were trying to see if we could influence somebody's dream by what kind of odors are in the room. And sometimes the odor, they would pump in the scent of rotten eggs. And then they would change the colors, like different lights. They would have it be a bright red, bright orange, bright purple, to see if those colors in the room would affect sleep and dreams. And then they started to put in sounds, like the sounds of a cat, the sounds of traffic, and then very bizarre disco, like random sounds of like the city. And then they started to get really crazy. And they started to bring in, from intermittently, people dressed up in very strange costumes, like dressed up like a horse, dressed up like Like, oh God, what were some of just, I mean, like an alien, they had hazmat suits because it's COVID. They had to be covered up anyway to be in close proximity. And then they would do strange things in the room to see if what they were doing was affecting the dreamer. But the part that was most engaging for the Twitch audience, they would set up a vote, like a poll every 15 minutes, every half an hour for the viewers to get to pick how they wanted that dreamer to be influenced. So do you want a sweet smell or a sour smell? Do you want red or do you want purple? Do you want the horse or do you want the donkey? Do you want them to dance or do you want them to fight with each other? So the people on Twitch, and we at one point had 100,000 viewers that were polling. So it was intense. And really we could call this whole thing an experiment in dream interference. What happens when or sleep interference, sleep and dream interference. What happens when people are deliberately trying to influence somebody else's sleep and dreams? Does it work? So that was the question. And then we have some answers to that.
Yes. Well, before we get to the answers, I just want to ask a couple other questions about the experiment itself. So were the dreamers all in the same place, or were they in different places?
So we had one sleep and dream laboratory, and we did 4 segments, so 4 episodes. Each episode featured one dreamer, and one dreamer would sleep. They would come into the sleep laboratory about 10 o'clock at night, and they would sleep. They would go to sleep pretty quickly, and they were free to leave around 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. So while we were watching during probably midnight their time to about 5 in the morning was the bulk. And then we would wake them up when it seemed like, because then they would really ramp up the interference. And finally the person would just wake up and be a little shocked at what was around them.
And how did they determine who these dreamers were going to be? They're sleeper dreamers.
Right. So there was a team in England that polled a lot of people. They were from Twitch. So all of them were gamers, and they had to pass certain criteria. They had to be people that remembered dreams pretty frequently. They had to be people that were pretty adventurous and not faint at heart. Like they had to not be too scared, because what was happening to them would have freaked me out. I mean, if it was me in there, I would still be in therapy. I'd be in therapy for the rest of my life, I imagine. So they had to, and then they had to sign 1,000 waivers, and they did a mix of men and women. So we had 2 boys, 2 girls. Actually, they were adults. They were probably between the ages of 26 and 32. It's never been my world, ever. But I can definitely say now I have a much deeper respect for that community than I did before. Yes, they're goofballs. Yes, it's like there's a constant banter of ridiculous silliness that they text, that they're chatting like a raging river. The chat was just a river of like, dude, flip him over. Why is he moving like that? I mean, there's like just silly things. But I also think that gamers may be the ones to influence the world. I mean, they are thinking in a way that is very strategic, and it's very global. And there's really something about this community that I actually felt proud to get and honored to get to be introduced to, even though some of them I think I'm a weirdo because I didn't fit in. They called me a Karen. They kept saying, "Who's the Karen?" I'm like, okay, no. But besides that, it felt like, some of them were really genuinely interested, and some part of me, maybe it's the grandiose part of me, but I thought, if there's a higher purpose in everything we do, what if one of these gamers ends up becoming somebody who saves the world, and maybe having access to his or her dreaming mind is going to give them more compassion, greater intelligence, maybe more intuition than they might otherwise have. So to me, it felt very much aligned to my purpose, to awaken the world to the power of dreams. This was really an opportunity to put that in action.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk all about the results of this, but first we have to take a short break. We are speaking about dreams with Dr. Dream, Kelly Sullivan Walden, and we'll be right back.
When is a car not a car?
When it shows up in your dreams. Cars are one of the most common dream symbols. If you don't know why you're dreaming about cars or any image, it can leave you confused or scared. But that dream could be a solution to a pressing problem, or an insight into a solution that's been bugging you for years. Go to my website and sign up for a complimentary discovery session, and I'll help you understand why a dream is a terrible thing to waste.
Go to thedreamcoach.net for more information.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're speaking about a very interesting dream experiment that was witnessed by Dr. Dream, Kelly Sullivan Walden. So, Kelly, you saw these dreamers in this very unusual setting.
Yeah.
They're given all sorts of external influences while they were sleeping. So tell me what the results were.
Well, I'll tell you some of the things that we already expected, because there had already been some scientific research done on smells and colors and dreams, and it seemed that our experiment backed these things up. For example, people might be interested to know that there was a really popular study done out of Mannheim, Germany, several years ago, that said that the smells in our dream zone absolutely affect our dreams. So, and this stands to reason. If there's a sweet smell, it will tend to help us have sweet dreams. Unpleasant smells will tend to influence unpleasant dreams. And that seemed to be the case with our dreamers. Also, interestingly, the colors red, orange, purple. Actually, purple is a surprise, because I think a lot of people associate purple with violet and being kind of a high vibrational color, but those are colors that seem to be disruptive to sleep, whereas colors that are most enhancing to sweet sleep and sweet dreams are neutral colors, beige, earth tones. So staying away from bright colors in your dream zone and in your sleep zone. So those are some things that we discovered. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that, I can understand smells being something that could affect you because, you can you're breathing while you're sleeping, but then when you're sleeping, your eyes are closed. So
correct.
How does it affect?
Right. So we're talking about the moments like when you do open your eyes, you might see whatever visually is in your sleep zone. As we learned in Dream Life Coach training with Marie Diamond, the visuals around us absolutely affect our sleep and affect our dreams. And only because of those moments when our eyes are awake, when we do see, because sometimes we will wake up and take a look, and whatever the last thing we look at as we're sleeping will have an impact. So while we're sleeping, though, you're right. While our eyes are closed, it seems like it doesn't really matter. Unless the color is bright and it's going to be disturbing, because, as a takeaway for your viewers and your listeners, the most ideal dream state and sleep state is very womb-like, very dark, as much as possible, having the curtains that block out all the sunlight. That tends to be most conducive, and sounds that are consistent and not jarring. So you can even have pleasant sounds of the ocean or forest, but if it's not consistent, it can wake you up. It can actually be jarring. So it's the name of the game is consistency, like a white noise that is like an ocean sound that doesn't stop. That's not going to be like crashing waves and then peace. It's like the notion is to have it be consistent. So we noticed in this sleep experiment with sounds that were jarring, you could see the spike in their heart rate every time the sound changed. Whether it was a consistent city sound and all of a sudden quiet, that would trigger something. So consistency is the key to a good night's sleep and to sweet dreams. sorry, one more thing that is kind of common knowledge before going in. There was research done on people hearing noises as they slept, and especially hearing different names. So, for example, while you're sleeping, so I could read out of a name book thousands of names to you, Debbie, while you sleep. And the only names that you'll tend to remember or tend to dream about will be your own name, your kid's name, or your husband's name. That's about it. Most of the other names, I'm going to be whispering them all in your ear as you sleep, but most of them will just kind of go into the slush pile, like not necessary. But all of a sudden you hear your own name or your dog's name or your kid's name or your husband's name. All of a sudden you're alert, and those, you will tend to dream about those things. So similarly, this is what happened in our sleep and dream study. There was Dreamer 2, subject 002. She had been, as it turned out later, really, really missing being out in Piccadilly Circus with her friends. That was where she would go on the weekends and during the weeknights with her friends, and she'd been missing that. So she dreamt in the midst of our dream experiment there was a point where we blared in the sounds of the city. During that time, she dreamt about being at Piccadilly Circus and being and having a really pleasant dream about being with her friends and being out. So the sounds related to what she already was thinking about, what she was already feeling. So it seemed to trigger what was already kind of stirred up in her. It didn't provoke something different, too different. So this brings up a couple different things. There are most of what we sort for when we're awake or asleep is an affirmation of what we already know. Is a continuation of the storyline that we're already living. So that is the majority of our dream content, no matter how we're influenced, is going to keep us inside the story that we're already telling ourselves. But here's the other piece. We do sometimes get brand new ideas and brand new things that come in through, do you remember what we called him, Debbie? Remember old RAS? The reticular activating system.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is an aspect. This is like a function of our brain that keeps us sane. It's where we discard everything that is different than what we believe or what we know. It all goes into the discard heap. We only tend to keep what we already know or already believe. And this reticular activating system is alive and active all day long, except while we sleep. So I think of it as the bouncer of a nightclub. There's the list of the people who are always allowed to come in, and only they can come in, even if it's a boring group of people. It's like they're tried and true according to the subconscious mind. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We are habit makers, and those habits will keep us alive. So even if Jesus himself, even if a multimillionaire, even if the Willy Wonka with the golden tickets is outside saying, hey, let me into this nightclub, our subconscious mind will say, no, thank you. RAS, the reticular activating system, will say, no, you pose a threat. If we let you into this club, we might die. If we bring in a new thought, we could die. So how do we change? How do we evolve as human beings? We have to wait for the bouncer of the nightclub to go to sleep. And the reticular activating system goes to sleep while we are sleeping. Most of the time, it does wake up every once in a while. There is still that sorting process. However, when we are sleeping and dreaming is when we are more influenceable than when we are awake. But really, the bottom line, I'll wrap my big bow around it, is I think mostly our dreams are helping us to stay sane and to stay basically who we are, because who we are is fabulous. But our dreams also do give us that little bit of cutting edge, that little bit of leading edge, and that little bit of opening to explore a new thought, a new belief, a new awareness that can make us smarter, that can make us a little bit more intelligent than we otherwise would be.
I have to ask though, what happened when they had the person in the horse costume come in?
Not that much. Not that much. It seemed, I mean, it would make sense because, I mean, you are so intelligent. You already brought this up. Whatever is visually happening in your sleep zone, unless the person isn't sleeping deeply, isn't going to do very much. I mean, it was astounding to me that there was so much physical activity that was, some of it was quiet. It was quiet until the end. At the end, they started to become more boisterous. But literally, there was a donkey, there was a pig, there was, costumes. There were hazmat suit people basically having like a rave party, dancing around the bed. And the person's dreams didn't reflect that, because I believe it's visual. And when we're sleeping, our eyes are closed. Our visual cortex is awake, but it's not looking at what's happening around us. It's looking at memories. It's looking at other things.
Right.
So it didn't seem to make that much difference.
Okay. Well, we're coming toward the end. So tell me about the conclusion you want to tell me about.
Okay. So this has really nothing to do with this experiment, although it kind of lends itself to this. So I interviewed someone not that long ago who actually worked for NASA and who is a very intuitive dreamer and at a very high level. And he said, so this will first be very terrifying, but there's a solution. He said, if we were aware as a species of the amount of sleep and dream interference that is attempting to happen to us already, we would be shocked. We would be terrified. We would feel so vulnerable because there are, we could say, nefarious folks out there that companies are wanting to figure out what's in our dreams, figure out what's in our minds so that they can market to us, so they can sell to us, but also so that they can control us. So that energy, that is going on out there. And that sounds like, okay, this is like a Black Mirror episode. This is horrible. So the little cute experiment that we were doing on Twitch was really kind of part of, in a way, something that I think is much bigger. And the solution, because I was talking to this gentleman and I said, my God, well, then how do we survive this? And he said, the only way to really survive the whole notion of being interfered with by anyone is we have no choice but to become enlightened. If we take our spiritual growth, development, unfoldment seriously, then we can't be messed with. If we become more fearful, then we become more porous, more easily accessible to anyone that would want to interfere us. I mean, think about advertising. Most advertising preys on our fears. But if we were enlightened and we already felt whole and complete, we wouldn't be so receptive and so susceptible to those things. So to me, the good news is that if we all truly seek to grow our own light, to grow our own self-awareness, to grow our own connection with God, with whatever God means to us, then we actually can be immune to these influences. Then we can chart our own lives. We can be the directors of our own dream. We can then have the life that we choose to co-create with each other, and we don't have to live in fear. We can live actually joyous, beautiful lives. So to me, dream work is where it's at, and this is how we can grow more quickly.
Of course, that's the absolute truth. And if anybody even wants to consider that, the pandemic has been a gift to us because it's given us the time to slow down so we can get within ourselves.
Yes.
To discover all that we already have in us that we may not even realize we have, but it's there all the time. We just have to do it. Anyway, this has gone by so fast, so I just have time for this final question.
Yes.
How can people find out more about you and your work?
Oh, thank you, Debbie. That's very kind. They can go to my website, which is ihadthestrangestdream.com. It's also kellysullivanwalden.com. And on my website, you can receive a free snooze meditation that is designed to help you get a better night's sleep. And that's
wonderful. Well, Kelly, this has been So terrific. I wish we had hours to do this, but unfortunately we don't.
On a parallel plane. Happy 100th anniversary, Debbie.
Well, thank you.
Woo!
Thank
I'm
you
so proud
for
of you.
being on Dream Power Radio today. We've been speaking with Dr. Dream, Kelly Sullivan Walden, all about dreams. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.